Hey, how's it going, everybody? Um, Gonna make a video about some plumbing stuff and kind of go through what I've learned. I'm not a plumber, so the first time I put this together, I was missing a piece, and I'm gonna kind of show you guys what I gotta do. I'm not even positive this will fix my problem, but I'm like 85% sure. So I'm gonna go ahead and record it, show you guys what I did, and then show you what I'm going to do to fix it and why that's supposed to work. But here, let me flip this around. So what was going on here is I assumed that just having the water go through my pipes here, and so the only thing that's different right now is I took this coupler off. I thought that was leaking air from suction, but that's not actually how this works. What it turns out is the water's getting sucked through here, going up the pipe, then going into this housing here. It's getting pressurized by the motor that's in there, and then holding, I believe it's 2 gallons of pressure in this tank. That tank's hooked to this gauge. Once this tank is full pressure, it tells this contactor to turn the pump off. And to some of y'all that might be gibberish, but what I'm getting at, or what I've discovered, because I assumed this would have some kind of mechanism to keep the pressure from flowing backwards, is that I have to put what's called a check valve in here. So it'll allow water to go through my pipes. I'm probably going to put it in this one right here, pretty low. It'll allow water to go through my pipes, get pressurized, go back out, to the water hose. But then when it gets to the high pressure, it will also shut off, and the pressure will stay in this pipe because it only allows it to, it won't let it flow back out. Right now, as soon as this thing kicks off, it just flows all the pressure back to my tank and then turns right back on. And it took me a little bit of messing with this and just thinking to figure out what the problem was. Mostly because it's a pump from Harbor Freight, and I was second guessing my plumbing, which was a good idea apparently. And then I was also second guessing whether or not this pump was any good. Sorry, it's raining, that's why I'm doing this today, so it's kind of loud in here. But I think the pump's working fine. I was curious if there was something wrong with their pressure switches or whatnot. And then I was concerned with that rubber coupler, but I think that was even working fine. I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to that just to be double sure. But I think my main problem was every time this thing would turn off, it would just let the water go back into the tank and then turn back on and then build pressure and then turn back off. And the way it was acting, no matter how I did any of my settings, it would do that. And it just, now that I've taken a couple weeks, really thought about it, researched some things, I think that's what's going on. So let me show you what this thing looks like. So this is your check valve, and if you look on there, it tells you which way it goes. So that allows my water to go up and through that pipe, and then when the pump turns off, it can't get past this thing. So in theory, that should solve my problems. If not, I guess I'll be adding to this video. I'm probably not going to be able to test run this today. I need to go get some more water because I used all my water trying to get this to work last time. But I figured it was worth kind of recording. It's too tight in here for me to do video of me working on it, and it's too loud anyway, so I will add to this later. Okay, so what I've done here is I cut that elbow off. And since I cut that off, it gave me all this room. So what I went ahead and did is put my coupler back on here. And this time around, I added some PVC glue to it, some blue PVC glue. Cranked that thing down with a ratchet as tight as it'll go. And that's going to set and dry. So now what I have to do, or what I did, and what I have to do, that's the new valve I'm putting in, and I went ahead and glued that. And so at this point, I just take this guy. I'll have to mark that pipe and cut to make this valve fit. But then I'll just glue this in and crank that clamp down and glue this side once I cut it to fit, and we should be back in business. That's going to be a little easier said than done because all this stuff's already put together, so I'm working in the middle as opposed to from one end to the other. I don't know how much this PVC glue is really going to help with this rubber coupler, but I figure it's better than nothing. The threads on my IBC tote are messed up, so I have to kind of come up with something. But that's where I'm at now. I'm going to go ahead and get this guy marked and cut, and then glue this all back together and give y'all a quick view of that. After that, I'm going to have to let this stuff dry overnight. This glue says it sets up pretty quick, but I don't want to have any more problems than I've already had. So I'm going to get this finished up, put back together, and show you all the end result. Okay, so I got it all put together. I want to run through how all this works again, because this was kind of hard for me to figure out on my own. I was almost to the point where I thought about calling some plumbers and really getting the idea, but I started messing with it today and figured it out. So the way it works is it draws the water in from here. This valve allows it to go this way, come in, get pressurized into this tank. That makes this valve go up. When it hits whatever sensor I tell it to hit, it will kick this contactor loose. That disconnects the electricity, turns the pump off. Now, what was happening is when this would turn off, all the pressure would just backflow back into my tank, and then the pressure would drop on this gauge, which allows this to connect again, and then everything would turn back on. It'd build pressure, and so on and so forth. It was just going back and forth, back and forth. This eliminates that. So once pressure is built, then it cannot go back past this point, and the pressure stays built up in my piping here. So as far as where this application and why you would be doing this, for me, I have no well on the property, so I fill this up. It takes me about a full day of driving to my neighbor's house, filling up about 80 gallons at a time, which is pretty heavy in a truck. Coming here, and then I use a transfer pump to get it into this. That takes about 4 trips. It takes a while to do. Most of it's sitting there with a water hose in your hand. So that fills this up. This pumps the water out of it. You can also use this for a shallow well. That's actually what it's called, is a shallow well pump. So if you live in an area where you can hand drive what they call a point well down, it's a pipe that's got a point at the end of it, and it's got a screen in there. They're pretty expensive, but if you're in the right areas, you can hand drive your own well. That's what this is primarily designed for, is to suck water out of a shallow well. It actually is a little easier on the pump with what I'm doing, but also, in the future, if I decide to get a well drilled or something similar, I may be able to even use this instead of having them come build a well house and do all that. Like, I may just be able to hook this to a well. We'll see. What I would like to do probably instead of that is to do a rainwater collection system. So basically you would take a gutter off the back of my shed here, pipe it through a filter. That would be the important part, is I'd need a filter, and then I could have it dump into this tank, and as long as it's mostly clean water, this thing would work that way too, and every time it rains, it'd be refilling itself. Now, you don't want to drink that or anything, but as far as watering plants, mixing concrete, even doing dishes, really, it would just be a cool kind of off-grid situation. And that's the whole thing, is I'm off-grid. I don't have a well. I do have electricity, so I'm going to read the back of the glue thing and see how long this takes to set up. I've got some other water that I can add to this, but I'm not sure if this glue is going to dry yet. So I'll add to this video whenever I get this pump up and running and tuned up right, and show y'all how it's supposed to work, and then you can kind of see, the gauge will come up, and then this will click off, and you can see what I'm talking about there. Thanks for checking it out. Hope it helps. Okay, so it worked. You apparently have to have one of those, or it ain't gonna work. I have, the only problem now is I got a like tiny little leak somewhere in here, but it's not really pressurized, so it's fine, and it's like barely dripping. Just a little bit of water. So I've got to get that worked out, but as far as the system, this is actually plugged in and on right now. As you can see earlier in the video, this pressure gauge was all the way at 0. Now we're at, about 55 psi. So come out here to where that pipe goes. So far I don't see any leaks, but just like any other water hose, turn that on. This is going to run. You can see the shower going over there. And this should turn back on at some point. And that is with the spigot still open. So that's exactly how it needs to be working. Shower's still pumping out and the pump's not even on. Now I can come over here, turn that off. And bam, got a shower. I hope this helps somebody if you're out here in the woods like me trying to stay clean. And thanks for checking it out.